Rev, good afternoon. How are we doing today?
Great, Ryan. How are you? Thank you for having me on here today.
Thanks for joining us. We're excited to talk to you and learn a little bit about your background. I'm Ryan Huffman, Strategic Partnerships Vice President with CUSI Companies, and this is another episode of Innovations and Integrations. Rev, you're kind of a legend in the industry, and you're growing a following.
Oh, wow.
I had the pleasure of hanging out with you and having a few cocktails with you at the beginning of the summer at Industry Now and listening to your perspective on a lot of things. But tell me a little bit about your restaurant background and then kind of what you're doing these days.
Sure. So, restaurant background has a couple of twists and turns in it, but I was in the music business for a very long time, and one day decided that I don't like working with musicians because they're difficult. They don't answer questions. They have an artist mindset, and although they're beautiful people, they're difficult to work with. And I said, you know what? I'm done working with musicians. I'm going to go be in the restaurant business. I love food. I love restaurants. I love dining out. And I quickly learned that chefs and restaurant operators aren't all that different.
Right. That's funny.
But anyway, I opened a bar in New York City in 2010 with a couple of buddies. We had a restaurant in it, but it was primarily a bar. We owned that business for about 6 years, and when we sold it for a massive loss, and I really do mean a massive loss. It's 2022 as we're recording this, and we still owe some of the debt. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a bad partnership, but we don't need to get into it. But the beauty of that is, sort of the phoenix from the fire story is, when we closed that bar, people called me and said, dude, what happened? Like, you guys had a 4.7 on Yelp, you had 15,000 people in your database, your Facebook page had thousands of followers. You guys were packed all the time. The top of every best of list, like on paper, we look like, the most amazing business on the planet. And when I run into people that still like, oh, you still an Idle Hands bar, they're like, oh my God, this is the coolest bar ever. Like, we're humbled, but
Right.
we just didn't know what we were doing. And we had some
Right.
bad partners and whatever. But anyway, so as people started to call me that, I realized something really important. Oh, I had developed a skill that other people didn't have, which was I'm good at building the brand of a hospitality business, and I'm good at building customer engagement, and I'm good at events and marketing and guest acquisition and retention. Excuse me. And through that, I was like, other restaurants and bars were like, can you help me? I was like, well, yeah. And so I just took a lot of the principles that I learned in running the music agency and helping to build bands' careers, go from from a demo tape to hundreds of thousands of records. Like I just used the same principles. And, that was really, really attractive to me. Is I love restaurants. I love dining out. I love the plight of the restaurant operator. Like I love restaurateurs. Like I just love the whole thing. And so I took all that knowledge and applied it. Flash forward to now. I'm sorry, man.
No worries.
All better now. Flash forward to now. Me and some buddies last year opened a quick serve hamburger restaurant here in New York City, and so I'm getting a second kick at the can. Way smarter, way more equipped. Way more things at a lot more network out there, a lot more, tools at my fingertips, and it's a very different scenario.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I can see the parallels between the music industry and the restaurant industry for sure. You have those egos that come into play sometimes, and people grow too fast, or don't have the patience to weather the storm. That's great.
Yeah,
So I can
my
also,
music business. I'm still friends with some of the music business people, and we get together from time to time. They're like, "Oh, how's the food business?" I was like, "Well, you can't download a cheeseburger, so we got that going
right?
for us."
Yeah, that's funny. So, talk to me a little bit when you're working with, and within your own brand and the burger joint you're working at, and then some of the people you're consulting for. What kind of stuff are they asking you to help them overcome? What kind of challenges?
Sure. So let's give the audience a quick segue there. So, beginning of 2020, I was the chief marketing officer for a software company that helped restaurants to manage their menus online, and they got bought by TripAdvisor. And so we were in this period where they're trying to figure out like how to assimilate the two companies. Anyway, TripAdvisor being a global travel organization into a global pandemic was just bleeding money because nobody was traveling. So they ended up just cutting tons and tons and tons of staff. And I was like, okay, well then I'll go be a consultant until this pandemic thing washes away. And I think, in February 2020, we're like, what, 60 days? This will be done with. I was like, I'll take my severance package. I'll be a consultant. I'll go get a job after this. Well, the obviously, I guess we're still kind of in the pandemic. I'm not really quite sure what the take
Right.
on that is. But anyway,
Yeah.
I had my mask on a bus this morning. Anyway, I started this consulting company, and the consulting company kind of blew up to the point where, like, I will not be going back to a corporate job anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'm doing exactly what I want. I have two types of clients, the majority of which are either large independent restaurant operators or growing multi-unit brands. And I help them with really two things. I help them to make technology decisions. So what technology should I be bringing in to either, increase revenue, make a better guest experience, automate my kitchen? Like what tech do I need? There's a lot of tech
Hmm.
out there. And then the majority of what I'm doing for those restaurants is I'm helping them to create scalable and measurable guest acquisition and retention programs. So how do I make more money?
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I recently talked with a very large operator at FS Tech, and they were talking about how they approach technology specifically. And they said, "Hey, there's two, and it's similar to what you are. I think there is some overlap, but they were saying, hey, we think technology is A, how do we make the job easier, more functional, the automation in the back of the house to create better workflows and do that, and then they separate it to how do they improve that customer experience to make sure they're coming back." And they said we try to keep them completely separate. And there is an overlap there. So give me your perspective on that. What do you think about the guest facing technology versus the back of the house technology, and what's your perception on that?
Well, all technology should help you work smarter and faster, right? And if the technology is aimed at towards the guest experience, it should enhance the guest experience. It should either make it easier, make it better, make it more a better experience. Like it should be an extension of the brand. You know what I mean? Like whatever's cool and great and unique about your
Right.
concept, the technology should help enhance that piece of it, right? I'll give you a really simple example. Why do I have a Five Guys app on my phone? Because I don't want to wait in line.
Right.
I want to walk in and I got a 6-year-old and like I got to get him fed quickly. And so I'm happy to download that app and order. But when I'm in the Five Guys app, it feels like a Five Guys experience and it adds to my Five Guys experience. It
Yeah.
makes it easier and more pleasurable for me to have a Five Guys experience if I can walk in the door and there's my bag.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great
So
example.
so I think if it's guest facing, again, it has to enhance the experience. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not guest facing, if it's back of house or whatever you want to call it, front of house, I look at it then, it has to make somebody's job easier, right? Primarily, that's probably an employee rather than an owner or an executive. But if your if your KDS screen is really clunky and makes it hard to clear orders, that's a bad KDS screen. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or everybody's talking. I mean, I was at FS Tech as well. Everybody's talking about automation. Well, yeah, I want a pizza robot because if I'm paying somebody whatever an hour to like sauce, 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 there is something way more high value that person could be doing
Yep.
that a robot can't do. And I'd much rather rather buy a robot to evenly apply sauce to a pizza and
Yeah.
then teach an employee how to have better guest relations. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's how I kind of see it. As tech should be helping somebody, whether it's a guest or an employee.
Yeah. So you talked about the automation at FS Tech, and we're working with a lot of different tech companies. And like you said, we do the deployment, we're the boots on the ground to help get everything out in front of the restaurants or retailers or whoever it happens to be. And the automation is such a big thing. The big thing that we noticed is the automation in the drive-through with the voice-over technology and the cameras, and they're taking different inputs in and they're digesting it. And just like you said, maybe they're upselling a burger and adding bacon to it or whatever. Give me a little bit about your perspective on how AI is in fact affecting the restaurant.
Well, I had a great conversation with a company today that like that's their thing is AI. And it's like, well, I think we all, many people know like the Moneyball and the Billy Bean story. Like he literally looked at the data and he used the data to make informed decisions, right? And he literally like changed the game, right?
Right.
Well, I think AI and machine learning were, in the restaurant business, like we've been doing like hunch marketing, and hunt. We've been using hunches to make lots of decisions for years, and like a real simple example would be like we put out an LTO Did it sell a lot? Yes.
Right.
Great. Let's do it again. Well, right, but what did it do? Did it bring in new guests? Did it bring in old guests? Did it increase AOV? Did it increase frequency? Like, did it increase a day part? Like that kind of data, knowing those kinds of things helps you make an even better decision. And again, I'm using simple examples.
Right.
But I see like machine learning and AI as helping me to make a better decision, right?
Yeah.
Company I talked to today did something really interesting. So they can plug into your camera, or they can plug into microphones in the room, and they can monitor your team. Okay,
Oh,
and
wow.
so let's say it's Ryan's job. He's working. It's a QSR, and Ryan should be asking, "Would you like fries with that?" On every order. Again, I'm using simple examples,
Yeah.
right? And let's say that Ryan does that 75% of the time. Ryan's a pretty good employee, right?
Right.
But we would love it if you did it 100% of the time, right? But I, as your manager, can't stand over you and be like, you forgot that one, you forgot that one, you forgot that one,
Right.
you forgot that one.
Yeah.
But if I get a report as your manager or even the store owner that says, hey, 3 out of 4 times Ryan's great about suggesting fries, but that 4th time he doesn't, I have the ability to go, yo, Ryan, man, you're doing a great job. We love you here. 3 out of 4 times. Just can you make sure you nail that 4th time?
Yep.
I now have data and intelligence that tells me exactly what I can do to help you improve. That's awesome. I'm not guessing at
Right.
what Ryan's improvement needs to be. I'm being told. And so
Yeah.
like that's a great example of how machine learning or AI can help the business. Is like be the eyes and ears for me and analyze the things that like I'm not seeing because I got 10 other things I'm doing.
Yeah. And then that's something, that resonates with us, I mean, perfectly. And people don't realize that. They think that it's, replacing someone's job and it's not enhancing their job or enhancing their productivity. So to me, it's always like it's creating more habits that you want them to create. And, whether it's hand washing and using technology for that or whatever it happens to be in the restaurant space, that's pretty telling. So that's a great example. I got the chance to hear you talk about this at Industry Now at the beginning of summer. But talk to me a little bit about what you think is the most vital piece of restaurant equipment in the restaurant space, technology-wise.
That is a very broad question. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to talk about something that's marketing and guest facing. That's my field. My field is marketing. Um, you know, I think for way too long, restaurants have seen the center of their tech stack as the point of sale. Okay. And it totally makes sense why. We took a brick and mortar business where people walked in and handed us cash, where now everybody has a credit card, and we needed a way to take that credit card. We needed a way to take that payment. And by the way, this is how the restaurant business in general kind of solves problems. They wait till it becomes a problem, and then like, what's the quickest way? And it's totally fine. It's just how the business is. I think we're evolving, but like that's how the POS became the center of our tech stack because we needed to take a credit card. Okay. And now people are making decisions based on what is my POS. There's this other thing I want to do. And again, that makes sense. It's sort of the heart of the business. It's expensive. It's hard to replace. It's tied to cash. Like I get that.
Yeah.
But when somebody calls me now and as a consultant and says, "Hey Rev, I'm looking about redoing my tech stack. Which point of sale system should I be looking at?" I usually turn around and go, "Well, what's more important to you? How you manage your guests or how you manage transactions?" And if
Right.
they say transactions, then I'll go through, okay, well, here's how I evaluate POS. What's your service model? What's your average order value? How many terminals do you need? How many, whatever, that kind of stuff, right? But if they go, well, really the guest reactions or the guest interaction, because to me, that's more important. Like I could take your credit card with a square swipe. I don't care. But if there's no
Right.
guests, and if I
Right.
can't
Doesn't
drive a
matter. Yeah.
repeat visit, it doesn't matter. So to me, I like to think about what is the guest engagement platform for which is going to be what I call my highest calling. So that could be a CRM or a CDP, or it could be a loyalty system. But like, what is the way in which you are going to manage the information that your guests give you through their purchase behavior?
Yeah.
Because ultimately you need to be analyzing that and making decisions on that. So if your average order is $25 an order and you want to get
Yeah.
to 27, if you don't even know that it's 25, right? And you don't know who is spending above and below that, you can't figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
So, if the question asking me, Rev, what's the most important piece of tech that somebody could buy?
Yeah.
I would say whatever's the tool that's going to manage your guest analysis, segmentation, and or interactions. That would probably be a CDP, CRM, or a loyalty
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and following you on LinkedIn and social media, you obviously do your market research and you get out and about, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But talk to me about maybe the most creative way or unconventional way you've seen people use technology to accomplish the goal that you just spoke of. I'm just curious.
Uh, I don't know that this is unconventional, but it's certainly creative. I have a couple of clients, and I've seen a couple other restaurants do this. That they're independent operators, so they don't have sophisticated enterprise, style tech stacks, and they certainly don't have the budget for it. But they're trying to like emulate what it would be like to operate as like a Houston's or a Chili's or a Taco Bell. Like they're trying to like take something that those brands would do and do it at an independent level. And one of the really cool moves I've seen a couple of restaurants doing, certainly some of my clients are doing it, is we have a tool that analyzes frequency and average order value. So we know when a guest comes in and we know what they've spent.
Yeah,
Okay. And then it builds them in a segment. And what we've done, again, this is a tool we spend like $200 a month on. It's nothing.
right,
Um, Basically, we create a threshold. So, okay, once you've had your fourth visit in a year or 6 months, whatever the frequency is, it pops them into a segment and then it automates an email back to that person that says, hey, thanks for coming to see us 4 times in the last half a year.
right.
Here's a voucher for the next 30 days. Every single time you come to us, you get X discount. Just show this.
That's
And we
amazing.
don't need to put a code into redemption. They don't need to do it online. They do nothing because it's an on-premise scenario. It's not an online delivery
Right.
type place. But the whole point is like now we're able to surprise and delight our customers in a completely 100% automated way on a really, really like low technical lift. You know,
Yeah.
and the same thing we've also done at the same time we said, okay, to this tool, like, hey, look at all of our guest data. And anytime somebody hits $500 in total spending, send them an email that says, hey, hey, big spender, uh, on your next visit in the next 30 days, an entire chef's tasting is on us if you bring 3 friends. Just show
That's
this email.
that's awesome. Yeah.
And
That's
we haven't had a ton of people hit into those categories, but the ones that have and then come in are like, this is amazing. And
right.
you'd be like, oh, that's so big brotherish. I'm like, yeah, but people kind of know that like Facebook's tracking you and Amazon's tracking you and Apple's tracking you. So like,
Right.
so I give you a free chef's tasting for a restaurant you really love. Are you going to be upset? No,
Right.
people love it. So
Yeah.
I don't know that that's unconventional, but it's certainly creative. And again, low lift effort, low lift budget, high return.
Right. Yeah, and in our world, we're deploying kitchen display systems, POSs, everything, pen pads, and we're agnostic, so we work with everybody and everything. And we get brought into these conversations around the POS, around the KDS, and even on some of the drive-through technology. There's ways to glamify some of the drive-through stuff with the digital marketing and everything. But as far as the POS and the KDS and pen pads, there's nothing sexy about it. And when you're working with a corporation or a franchisee, the franchisee is like, go to hell, I'm not spending, for a new point of sales. And they'll ride. I mean, we've seen point of sales that we've replaced recently that have, legacy units from the 90s. And you're like, how the hell are you still running this? But so when you get brought into those kind of conversations, what's the dynamic of those conversations for you?
When somebody's using a legacy POS.
Yeah. Or what kind of conversations do you have in your consulting role? People are start to evaluate.
So this is my method as a consultant. You are the client. It's your money. I will do what you ask.
Yeah.
However, I'm also going to tell you what I think you should do, and if you don't like it, I'll still do what you want me to do.
Right.
So usually, like if I have a client calls me and says, "Okay, we're thinking about changing POS or whatever. What are your thoughts?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, here's my evaluation system. What's more important, that whole thing, and then what's your service?" Like I'd walk through all those steps. And I'd be like, "Okay, this is what I would do," and then once I had it, here's how I would operate it. And if they come back, and I also tell them too, look, if you don't like my opinion, it's okay. I'm here
Right.
to service you. So I will serve you how you want to be served. And if you just like to hear my opinion and still do what you want, we can do that too. But
Yeah.
I usually don't stand opposed to a
Right.
client.
Yeah.
It's usually not good for a consultant, but
Sure. And I know, the world's changed, in warp speed the past year and a half, 2 years. But as people start to evaluate point of sales, kitchen displays, and everything, are you seeing it? Obviously, people are just upgrading because it's time to upgrade. These legacy systems need to be thrown in the dumpster. But do you see is it principally, functionality on the backside of things, or is it usability by the team members that is a higher priority for people that are making these decisions?
It's a great question, and the true answer is probably depends on solution by solution basis. But
Yep.
I would typically lean towards to how does it make my staff's job easier? I'll
Yep.
give you a very simple example. We have a KDS issue at my restaurant. Okay, when my chef or my team clears the order, meaning we've prepped it, we've bagged it, it's ready to go,
Right.
right? The way the KDS is set up is it sends a text to our guest that says your order's ready. So now our guest is like, yeah, give me those burgers. But
Right.
like we still have to like retrieve the bag and put in the ketchup and grab the drink and like walk it out to the dining room. And there's, depending on time, that could be a 3 minute lag or a 10 minute lag, right? But the guest expectation is, yo, it's time to shove that burger down my jaw hole. And so we will get complaints of like everything was amazing except I had to wait extra 5 minutes for my burger, and I'm like,
Right.
man, you are impatient. But we set that
Right.
expectation by sending that text message, and I
Yeah.
don't have a way to change a delay in the text so that's
Yeah.
frustrating. But
Yeah.
again, so that like solving the KDS problem there would solve an issue for my employees because they
Sure.
have less angry guests.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and that's all, it all circular, and, it kind of goes around. And if the employees are, delivering great products, and, they're feeling good about the pace of play, they're not getting yelled at by someone that's impatient or disgruntled, it just improves everything functionality wise. So, there's two different perspectives and the common perspective, I think, is we had this huge labor shortage and no one's hit harder than the restaurant industry. But everyone's like, oh, technology's taking jobs away or whatever. But I think your perspective, just talking to you, and most people that have a kind of a more holistic view of it, is like, hey, we want to use technology to supplement our staff to make their processes better. So, in the grand scheme of things, what do you think is the best approach to using technology to approach, labor challenges?
Well, boy, that's a couple of multi-pronged question there. Very well
Yeah.
put together. But look, I think people need to let's go 10,000 feet high. I think people need to change their perspective when they're evaluating tech. Okay, because it's interesting to me that like you wouldn't open a pizzeria without an oven, right? You wouldn't open a pizzeria without a front door. Like,
Right.
how did a front door and a pizzeria oven become standards? I don't mean that to sound stupid, but like to me, there's certain pieces of technology that should be standard, right? Like why have we not adopted more standards and like, hey, you can't operate without these things? We're probably getting there, but that's where I would approach it. And I think a lot of operators have a skeptical approach when they're evaluating something. What's gonna go wrong?
Right.
How is this gonna fail? Like, what are the reasons I don't need this? Okay, dude, calm down. It's an evaluation. You've bought nothing. Okay,
Right.
the perspective should be what possibilities exist if we do this.
Yeah.
What increase could happen to our service model, our system, or our revenue if we brought this in? And then I think you would put yourself in the right mindset to evaluate. If the answers to those questions are, well, not much, then okay, then you don't need it. But if you look at that solution and go, actually, if we did do that, we could accomplish A, B, and C with X, Y, Z results. Then you then get into a real evaluation. But you have to start with being curious. Could
Yeah.
this work, and what could be the result? Even if
Right.
even if you think you don't need it, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. So we always have kind of a philosophy here internally as we're talking to people and new, I call them friends, but partners, and try to figure out, what people's pain points are and challenges. And I don't think no is necessarily a bad starting point when someone says no to something. And a quick yes is also the same person that's also going to say, this is shit, and pull it out of the restaurant right away. And so when someone says no, then you ask them their reasons why, and then you know how to help them walk through that process and get to more of a championing technology, the process of whatever happens to be. So I mean that really resonates with me, is making sure that let's field trial this, let's test this kind of thing, and see how it functions. And every technology, there's a million kind of POSs out there, and one POS that's great for a fine dining restaurant is not the best one for a quick service restaurant or a burger joint. So that's really insightful for sure. So you're a man of the world, and you travel all the time. So we're gonna pivot here a little bit. you're out and about, checking out all kinds of restaurants, trade shows, and everything. I guess as far as you're doing your field research and providing the best insight for your partners and your clients, where do you get the most knowledge from? Is it out checking out other restaurants, or is it at trade shows, or combination of the two?
And that is also, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Where do I get my best information? Man, it's really not one source. I think it's wanting to be plugged into more information.
yeah,
And when you have that internally, you're like, hey, I'm always trying to learn best practices. I'm always trying to understand how people who are more successful than me do it. When that's your mindset, you just find it everywhere. But like, to give you a very tactical answer, for sure, trade shows.
yeah,
Like, at FS Tech, I walked into that trade show knowing that like loyalty is probably the most important retention tool right now, and that robots are going to fill our kitchens. Like, I knew that
right,
walking in the door, but it
yeah,
was it was interesting to me to sit in a room for 2 days and hear about how other people are thinking about this, because even though I already believed it, it helped advance the ball in the way I thought about it. And so, for sure, trade shows, well put together trade shows, are a good source of information.
yeah,
But then also, like, I don't know, I'm sure you do this as well. I ask lots of questions. So when somebody does something right, or when somebody approaches me and says, hey, we have this revolutionary new product, I go, okay, tell me about it. Like, or how did you
right,
accomplish that thing? Or what is it that CUSI does? Like, why do I need to know? Like, I'd rather
yeah,
know. Like, I'd rather have the knowledge.
yep,
And so for me, it's definitely asking questions of my peers. It's definitely attending trade shows. And those are probably the top two sources. And then, look, if you're in this business and you don't dine out at other places, what are you doing?
right,
Go eat in other places, and remember what it's like to be a guest. So
yeah. So from the technology perspective, the OEMs and people that are making this new great technology and projecting us forward, you've been around the world. You've seen a lot. You're very in to know in the restaurant space, but you also know what it's like to have things fall short with your previous restaurant experiences and everything. What would be one piece of advice as a new technologist in the restaurant space you would give somebody that you say, hey, if you're going to do one thing, this is something you make sure you do to make sure you're getting the most exposure, or create the best product? What would your advice be for somebody that's trying to introduce a new technology?
I'm going to give a strategy and then a tactic.
Yeah,
So strategy is, if we use or adopt this hardware or software, how does it make it easier or better for my guest or my employee? Like,
yep,
use that as a really top level criteria, or even the final criteria. If it sounds good on paper and price right, blah, blah, then the last question is does this truly make it better for my guest or truly better for my employee? So I think that's a strategic way of thinking about it. But a much
yeah,
more tactical way is, you got to get a tool that measures your guest data. You have to have a tool that gives you insights about your guest habits. Like, you need to know, how many reservations is this person making? What is the average spend of this family when they walk through the door? What is the frequency that like, you have to have that information, because there is no way to fuel the sales of a business by, putting pictures on Instagram. Like,
right,
yes, we all do it and it is important, but like, how important is Instagram?
yep,
I would tell Popeyes fried chicken. I love Popeyes. They have great content. But if Popeyes, and I'm sure they've done this, and I'm not picking on them, but if Popeyes hasn't gone into their analytics to see how much traffic Instagram drives to their website, I would ask them, why are they prioritizing such great content? You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, you need to be able to measure your guest habits in an insightful way that informs better guest experiences moving forward, whether it's pricing, reservations, loyalty, guest communication, whatever that is.
yeah. No, that's awesome. So tell me about some of the crazy things you've seen at trade shows. I know last week at FS Tech we saw puppies. We saw someone put a sign that said, "I paid $14,000 for this booth," which I thought was, we were catty corner from our booth, and I was like, "This is that's brash, if anything," but I appreciated that. So tell me about the craziest tactic you've seen for OEMs to get restaurant people's attention.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but the puppies were in part my idea. So
That's amazing. I mean, it was genius. I loved it. So people were like beelining like right around noon. I was like, what the hell's going on over there? And they're like, they got puppies. And I was like, it's great.
yeah, so
So
that provider, they're a client of mine, full reveal. But
yeah,
we had a conversation like 2 months before FS Tech, and we're like, look, this is really important. We know our ICP is there. We're gonna spend X. How do we make the most out of being there? And we like, okay, let's have tchotchkes. Let's make sure we have a banner. Let's hand out, like we do all the standard stuff. It was like, okay,
right.
how do we drive top of funnel? Like, how do we get people here? How do we
Yeah,
invoke word of mouth? This is exactly what we did and what everybody should do. Everybody that was involved in that event got on one phone call because we don't all work in the same office.
yeah, that's
We got on
amazing.
one phone call and it was like, okay, 45-minute brainstorm. No idea is a bad idea. Write everything down. And so we just started riffing ideas, and some of them were really stupid, like let's order pizza. I guess it's not that
Right,
stupid, but some of them were really
right.
simple and easy, like order pizza. And there were
Yeah,
things that were way more complicated than the puppies. But here's where that one came from. So that company is a QR code solution for payments,
yeah,
right? And ultimately, we were like, how do we get people to use the technology? Well, I said, well, what if we have the QR code and they can use it to make a donation to a charity? Oh, that's a pretty good idea. But are people really interested in making a charity as they're walking around like, well, no. Okay, well, how do we get them interested in making a charity? And I said, well, what if it's a charity everybody cared about? And then another idea on the list was like, what if we have a petting zoo? And I was like, oh, why don't we find a local shelter and we'll bring in puppies and then people can pet the puppy. And then after you like cuddle with this puppy for a minute or two, you're like, all right, I'll give $20. And then now you're
right.
using their technology. And so literally it was like, do the brainstorm. Like if you're going to spend that much money on anything,
It's
on
amazing.
LinkedIn
Yeah,
ads, on a trade show, on whatever, buying a billboard, like have the brainstorm. Put the most creative and interested people in a room and be like, okay, no idea is a bad idea. Put it on the board.
yeah, yeah. The response was amazing. And even at the happy hour that night, everyone's like, did you guys see the puppies? Did you see the puppies? And it was, I mean, it was gangbusters for sure. So I mean, I thought it was brilliant.
Okay, now
And I just
I
that
gotta, I got a hack for this. If
yeah,
you don't have time for the meeting, just make sure you have bottles of water.
yeah.
You know who's thirsty at a trade show? Everybody.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's genius. So tell me a little bit. So you're notorious for your food endeavors and eating everything, and I want to dive into the pizza challenge you've got going on right now, but some of the other things that you've eaten and kind of what there.
Le-
That's amazing. So
Legit, I did not finish my pizza lunch, so good call.
there you go. That is incredible. But yeah, tell me a little bit like where does this all stem from, and how are you not being wheeled around in a wheelbarrow but eating all the crazy stuff you do?
Before thank you. Before I was ever in this business, I've always been like a marketer and a content creator. And when I was in the music business, my side hustle was like writing CD reviews. That's how old I am, and writing reviews of shows. And then when I got into the food business, I was like, or sorry, one day I wanted to stop writing about music, but I still wanted to like create content. So instead of writing CD reviews, I started writing hamburger reviews. I started a burger blog. And that burger blog
Amazing.
blew up, and it became one of the top 3 burger blogs in the world. And you can laugh all you want, that is a thing.
That's
And
amazing.
that predated Instagram, predated TikTok, all that kind of stuff. So as like Instagram and TikTok and food blogging became like more of a regular part of everyday life, I switched to social media channels, and now across 7 or 8 social media channels that I'm managing, I probably have 700,000 followers.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, and so like I always say, the content monster is always hungry. So I
Yeah.
know that like great looking food gets engagement. So I'm always trying to like, how do I continue to get engagement, right? But also like I'm a paid marketing consultant for restaurants. So if I don't know how to get engagement on TikTok, I certainly shouldn't be advising you how to do it, right?
Right.
So like right now, it's National Pizza Month. So I said, okay, then I will share one pizza place every day for 31 days. And so now I
Amazing.
gotta go. Now I gotta go walk the walk. You know what I mean? I gotta
Yeah.
eat 31 piece of pizza.
Do you
But
have your
it's just
pizza
about.
place for Indianapolis picked out yet? Sorry.
Yes, I do actually.
Yeah.
We're going to Futuro.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard good things about that. So, no, that's exciting for sure. So as you talk about the social
But
media
yeah,
channels,
I'm just just trying to be engaging, trying to put good content out there.
Yeah, no, and you certainly do that. What do you think as a restaurateur? What do you think is the most effective social media vertical, whether it's Instagram or what do you think has the most traction or you see the most success with?
From a social media perspective,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to answer this in probably a different way than most people would expect. So the answer is Instagram. Okay, and here's why. Most brands think of Instagram, even social media in general, Facebook, Instagram, maybe even Twitter, as a way to acquire new guests. If I put great content on Instagram, new people will walk through the door. Well, most people don't follow a brand on Instagram unless they've either dined there already or intend to dine there. Okay,
Yeah.
which means that followers are actually what we would call guests, right? So the
Yeah.
things that you put on social media should be speaking to your guests. Instagram is a retention tool, not an acquisition tool. Okay.
Yeah.
Meta
Makes sense.
advertising is an acquisition tool, but organic social media is a retention tool. Okay. And so I think it's important. So to answer the question, why Instagram? I think it is fairly commonplace now that if Ryan were to call Rev and go, dude, sick new taco shop, you got to check it out. Okay. I'm either and or going to go to Google or Yelp or Instagram to look at it. Okay. I found out about it from a trusted resource, or maybe I walked by, or I
Right.
found out about it some other way, and then I went somewhere else to validate what I think or was told. So it's important in that regard that Instagram has, like, if you look at your top 9 or 15, if I get 30 seconds to check you out on Instagram, make sure that top 9 or 15 tells the full story of what the experience is like to be there, because that's a conversion moment. Right?
Yeah.
If you go, yo, you got to check out this dope taco shop, and I pull it up on Instagram, and then like the pictures are sick, the food looks amazing, the place looks great, people are having a great time, maybe there's a cool offer or whatever. I'm like, I need this, right? It
Yeah.
confirms the action. So I think that Instagram is the tool, as long as you understand where in the customer journey it lives.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and it's so clean and to the point too, which I love. And then you have the customers indirectly endorsing it, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, Rev, this has been great. As you did not disappoint. Your energy level
Thank you.
is right where we expected it to be. Excited to hopefully see you this week in Indianapolis. I'm trying to coordinate getting over there, and I'm hoping to do that. But I'll definitely reach out. But look forward to seeing you here and crossing paths again soon, and keep doing what you're doing because it's a ton of fun to watch, and you're doing a great job.
I appreciate that. Thank you for allowing me to share today. And for everybody that listened in, if you have any questions, I'm Rev Ciancio on every social media platform. I answer all my messages. So God bless.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. See you.
Thank you.